Hi, this is Jeff. This week we're talking with Michigan theater and film actor and executive director of Williamston Theater, John Lepard. In part one of our interview, we'll be talking about getting started, working with legendary playwright Lanford Wilson, starting Williamston Theater, and how Williamston Theater actually helps the local economy. Don't forget to stay tuned for part two in a couple of days when we'll be talking more in depth about acting, directing, and so much more. So let's get to it.
You need a break that gets you in the door, that gets you known by several. You can't turn down a Lanford Wilson world premiere. It's funny, but that's not that fun. It's about telling the truth. I mean, that's what they'll tell you. Look, react, breathe, tell the truth.
Me in rehearsal going, why am I yelling? Hello and welcome to Michigan Theater and Film Talk, the show dedicated to highlighting theater and film actors from all over the state of Michigan. If you are new to my channel or just happened upon this video, it might be a great idea if you went to my Facebook page and liked that page, which is Michigan Michael Chekhov Classes M2C2, and you will be the first to be notified of videos just like these. Of course, if you're a YouTube person, feel free to go on YouTube and search at Michigan Chekhov. That's two words, and the second word is spelled C-H-E-K-H-O-V. And go ahead and subscribe, like, and share this video with everyone you know, have known, or will know for the rest of your life. Oh, and don't forget, we are also available on podcast form. So again, wherever you get your podcast, just do Michigan Chekhov or Michigan Theater and Film Talk, and you'll be able to find us. Again, my name is Jeff Tamakis, and my guest today is Mr. John Lepard from the Williamston Theater, the executive director of the Williamston Theater, as well as a professional actor from all over the place, and a professional film actor as well. So it's going to be a great conversation. John!
Jeff!
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thanks for coming here. I know it's kind of a haul from...
It's about an hour.
Yeah.
I'm an hour from everything in Williamston, so that's just kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, so you're used to being behind the wheel. See, what we have learned with the Michigan actor is that if you are to be a Michigan actor, then you have to get comfortable behind the wheel of your car.
Yeah, you can find something with good mileage.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And you are suffering from a little bit of a cold.
A little bit of a cold, yeah. Yesterday, I'm teaching. I teach at Michigan State University as well. I'm teaching my one-on-one students, and all of a sudden, about an hour in, I could start to feel that tickle. You know.
Yeah. Well, my son is going through that as well. He's just a snotty, phlegmy, gross mess. I mean, grosser than a 9-year-old boy usually is, which is pretty gross on a regular basis. So
we're off to a good start.
Yeah. So you seem much better than that.
Oh yeah.
It's good to be a grown-up. So John, I wanted to talk to you about all kinds of stuff, but tell me about how you got started in acting.
Started in acting?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, it all goes back. Actually, when I was a child, 5 years old, my family was a gospel singing group. So we had a bus and we recorded albums and that sort of thing. And so I had an audience from the time I was about 5 years old. But it was not acting, it was music in churches and places like, So that was kind of where I started in front of people. And then when I was in high school, I did some, musicals. And then in college, I was going to go into telecommunications, and I had a mentor named W.L. Austin. He was superintendent of schools at Muskegon. And he said, in my sophomore year, he said, I don't think you're happy with this, and I think you should be an actor. And he gave me permission, basically. He was like, you can do this, and I think you should.
How did he know that you wanted to be an actor? How did you behave in class in some actory way?
No, I was the Rotary Club had this youth leadership conference that I went to as a senior, and he had this talent show and I sang something from like Oklahoma or something. And he saw that and liked me and asked me to come back the next year to do some stuff. And then he asked me to take care of his house in Lansing, where I lived and went to school. So I was taking care of his house in Lansing, and as I was doing that and going into telecom, that's when he said, you know, you're not very happy. You should go into this. And he also is a person who went into administration rather than following his passion, which was acting and theater. And at, what was he, 68 probably at the time, I think he could see himself in me, and
he didn't want the same
wanted
fate
me
for
to
you.
go into something that I would be happy with. So
Wow,
that kind of pushed me in the direction.
He must have cared about you.
He liked me, yeah.
Good deal for him to take such an interest in you.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Yeah. So what did you do then? So you went
Then I
into
switched
acting?
majors. I went to Michigan State, got my BA, and then went on to get my Master of Fine Arts degree.
Did you have Frank?
I had Frank Rutledge, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, my wife talks about Frank Rutledge a lot.
He was great. He was really a curmudgeon. You know, he was the epitome of curmudgeon. That was the guy. He just always had the pipe or a cigarette or something. And you know, Lepard, what the hell's the matter with you? Kind of a thing.
Yeah, the kind of acting teacher we don't usually see anymore.
You don't see him anymore, right?
No, well, they don't allow smoking in classes anymore.
Yeah, then I went to Nebraska and got my MFA at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. Came back to Detroit for a few years, and then went to Los Angeles for a few years. And then came back to Michigan. It was a very difficult time for me in Los Angeles in that I was in my 30s and late 30s, and reality TV was really coming into its own at that time in the early 2000 area. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get an audition. I could not get it. When you look at the breakdowns, it would be, you know, star names only, not a real actor. We want a person, star names only. So for a guy that's not a star, I couldn't get a foot in the door. And I kept coming back to do shows at the Purple Rose, and I thought
eventually got tired of the commutes back home.
Well, it was rough. It was kind of tough on my family. I was married to Jean Lyle Lepard at the time, and had my daughter Clara. They were in Los Angeles, and I'd come back to do a show at the Gem here in Detroit during 9/11. And that show was supposed to run from September until the new year, and it did. But I was scared that Los Angeles was going to be the next place that got hit. And my wife and child would be there, and I would be in Michigan. So I pulled Clara out of her school there and had her going to Okemos School in the Lansing area. And Jean came back, and we just hunkered down and hung out in Michigan. I have a lot of family in Michigan too. So as the next few years went by, you know, I remember talking to Jean and saying, hey, should we just go home? And she said, yeah, let's do it. And then things changed and turned into other stuff, and now I have this Williamston theater deal. Oh. So that's my story, kind of.
When did you start working at the Rose, the Purple Rose, and what was that experience?
Right after grad school. It was really great. I graduated in '92, had my first audition that fall at the Purple Rose. Moved back to Royal Oak.
Okay.
For about 4 years, and
so you were commuting from Royal Oak to Chelsea?
Yes, to Chelsea. Yeah.
That, for those of you who don't know, that is a not fun commute.
It's pretty rough.
A long commute. Yes.
Yeah. So I got used to that drive. First show I did was called, what was it? Necessities, and it was I think it was a world premiere, and it was Mary Bremer directed it. She cast me, my first job, she cast me here in the Michigan, area. And then after that, I started working a lot. I got that job, and then I worked at the Jet and the Attic, the old Attic Theater. I don't know if anybody remembers the Attic. And I, at the time, in Detroit, union work for industrial films was awesome. You could get jobs all the time. I learned to use an ear prompter and got a lot of work with the car companies and a lot of commercial work. Just it was all the time happening here. And then my dad got a brain tumor and died. Again, it was another one of those moments where I thought, if I don't go somewhere else, I will not be happy. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'll be happy just being in Detroit. So, mm-hmm. So we up and left for Los Angeles, just like that, like the mm-hmm. Beverly Hillbillies, basically. So everything we had in a truck, moved to Studio City, and just started going after it there.
Hi, this is Jeff. Just a friendly reminder to sign up for my new workshop on Wednesday, March 4th from 6:30 to 9:30 at the Universalist Unitarian Church of Farmington. We're going over auditions, and since audition season is coming up, I suggest you come by, learn a few tricks. Don't forget, it's totally pay what you can, but you have to sign up by going to my website, www.michigancheckoff.com. See you guys later.
It's a huge learning curve when you just move to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you're a young person, it's a wonderful place to be because every day you wake up and something cool might happen. Mm-hmm. And it did very often, good mm-hmm. things were happening all the time. But you have to think of yourself really as a business there. At the time, it was all about sending postcards out to agents and casting directors and saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, you should see me in this, and getting to know the people who are in the business so that you can at least get a foot in the door and get an audition, because that's the most difficult part.
That's really interesting. Do you think that you don't have to think about yourself so much as a business here as opposed to
No, you do.
Okay.
You do have to think about it here. It's just multiplied 1,000 times. There are 350 agencies out there. There's mm-hmm. 2 here that are,
union
SAG franchised. Mm-hmm. So you do have to think about the business. You do have to know guys like James Cool and Guy Sandville and the people mm-hmm. who are running theaters, just because even in a market like this that's smaller than Los Angeles, you still have to be in the loop with what's going on to get mm-hmm. callbacks and auditions and that sort of thing. Wow. But it's multiplied, and it's you don't get breakdowns here, which if you don't know what the breakdowns are, every day they send out this thing about what's being cast that day. So the casting directors will send out these breakdowns that are supposed to go to the agents, but they somehow get in the hands of actors once in a while, and you're able to see what's going on. And then you talk to your agent and say, hey, I would be great for this role, and the agent might be able to get you in on the audition, but a lot of times not, because the casting directors are inundated with submissions, so they pick the people that they know, and the people that they know mm-hmm. won't embarrass them in front of the producers. So mm-hmm. it's saturated with actors, and mm-hmm. I've heard.
Did you find LA to be kind of cliquish in that way, or I mean, how would you describe it as far as trying to make it as an actor in that area and trying to break in the door and be one of those known quantities?
Yeah, it's a matter of. I wouldn't call it cliquish. Mm-hmm. I would call it, you need a break that gets you in the door, that mm-hmm. gets you known by several. Mm-hmm. It's not a click thing. I would say it's, oh, I saw that guy on blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's bring him in. Mm-hmm. Because if they haven't seen you in anything and don't know that you can do it, then it's too much of a waste of time to try to nurture a young actor that's not beautiful or mm-hmm. hugely character or something. Mm-hmm. So it's all about the business and time and not wasting it and making sure that you're not getting someone on your set that's going to destroy everything. And I don't think it's cliquish.
And even
it's
then
about,
they do.
Yeah, even then, yeah. Right. It's like, are you sure you want this person? And it's all day long. So they have very little theater in Los Angeles that's like New York, like a big theater. It's all a lot of these 99-seat houses, mm-hmm. which for a long time you would not be able to, you wouldn't get paid for. You would just go to do your show at the 99-seat house.
So, in hopes that some casting director or someone with influence
right.
would come to see your show.
Send it out and say, please, please, come see my show. I'm really good in this show. And and then they're too tired to come to a show at night because they've been in the business all day long.
They've been seeing auditions all day long, and they want to go home and sleep and see their family.
Well, it was tough.
Did you do theater in LA while you were there?
No, because I kept leaving to do theater. So I kept coming back to the Purple Rose for one thing. They did a Lanford Wilson play, mm-hmm. Book of Days, that I came back to be in. And how do you can't turn down a Lanford Wilson world premiere, so I didn't do that. And then immediately after that, Jeff Daniels wrote a play called Boomtown that I was in with Guy Sandville and Sandy Birch. Of course, I wanted to do that as well. But it's weird because when you leave Los Angeles and you're not a commodity, they kind of forget you. And then when you come back, the agency's like, oh, yeah, how you doing? And then you have to almost rebuild from there. So I'm not complaining. Those were great shows. And every show that I've done during that time at the Purple Rose or at the other theaters that I did around the country was fantastic. But it didn't, you know, I would always get a call like the day after I landed in St. Louis. It would be, hey, can you come in for blah blah blah?
And you're like, of course. So what did you find that the phone wasn't ringing when you were there, and as soon as you stepped, that's kind of the actor's rule, right?
It is.
Yeah,
it's funny, but it's not that funny.
Yeah, it's funny and sad and true. You say you did this Lanford Wilson world premiere. Tell me about that process and what that was like.
That was great. Lanford came out to be there for the entire rehearsal, you know, part of it, and Guy Sandville directed, and he, you know, it was really great having this fabulous playwright in our midst, because he would listen to things and he would say, oh God, no, we gotta get rid of that whole scene, and he would switch things around.
So he was in the room with you when you were doing
yeah, he was, and he would just change things all the time, which was great because it made the play better. And he and Guy had a good relationship, and they would work things out, and you know, they'd stay up and talk at night and come in with something different, and it was really great. And then Susie Regan and I went down to St. Louis and Hartford. We did it again with a whole other cast and Marshall Mason directing, and it was a completely different beast. Lanford was there, but Marshall had a very different view of the play than Guy did. So and it was a much bigger space. It was St. Louis Rep, 800 or 1,000 seats or something. And
Purple Rose is about 200.
At the time, it was 120, 119.
Okay. So
now it's about it's 169 or 170. But then it was much smaller. And we had a lot of different. It was a very, I don't know, disparate group. There were a lot of Broadway musical type people. You know, Dee Hoty, who has done a bunch of musicals, Alan Campbell, a lot of people who aren't used to the Lanford style kind of thing, and they all came together, and it was fun. And then we took it from there to the Signature off Broadway, and that was another great experience.
Wow. So what was it like taking a show to that atmosphere after having done this in St. Louis? What was the big difference that you found in transferring that show to a different community?
It was, well, you're scrutinized more in New York. You know, St. Louis was like, yeah, bring it on. What do you have? Ooh, that was great. You know, because they love the St. Louis Rep. They have a great subscription package. They have a lot of people that just love to come there. And the story is about Missouri. So there was a lot of like hometown feel for it when it was down in St. Louis. When it came to New York, it was again Marshall Mason directing, and the same team. Marshall recast all the women, though. It was very weird. All the guys stayed on, all the women were different. I don't know why he did that. It's bizarre. There was this sort of pressure in New York that I felt from the New York actors that I didn't feel myself. I was just like, hey, we're in New York. This is awesome. I love it. But the guys who were in New York were like, when is Ben Brantley coming? Don't tell me when Ben Brantley's coming to review for the Times, because I can't do it. And I'm like, who's Ben Brantley? Is he good? He's a reviewer for the Times. And wow. And so once we were open, things settled in a little bit. But leading up to it, there was this a little bit of terror of what will happen, even with Lanford a little bit, what will happen to this play now that it's in New York. So it is weird. It's just a little bit of a pressure cooker when you go to New York.
Did you find that were the audiences as a whole different, or warmer, or colder, or?
it's a tough one to know because it's not a comedy. You can't feel them laughing. And sometimes you can't. You can feel them being upset with you a little bit more in New York. My character, anyway, I was kind of the bad guy. I was this sort of minister, Church of Christ, maybe minister, Assembly of God, kind of a thing, and you could feel the people bristle in New York from my character a little bit more than you could feel in St. Louis. Wow. St. Louis was like, oh yeah, I know that guy. He's up there at the church.
Yeah.
And in New York, it's like, oh,
wow.
In the Midwest, you can feel it. But that was just my character. The whole play was fairly well accepted. And then it had a really nice life after that, doing a lot of colleges. Colleges really picked it up and ran with it after that. So.
You graduated from Nebraska, and then you came to the Purple Rose. Did you have to have sort of a different approach to what you thought was your approach to acting when you went to the Rose, or did you keep that in the same?
No, I didn't. I had a really good program at Nebraska, believe it or not. It was a conservatory program. Every single semester it was, voice and movement, acting, and some history class or something like that. But it was theater history, and I got to work with a lot of different directors there, and a lot of different styles of directing, and I developed my own way of working with directors. Filtering what they say and figuring out what they mean, because directors have different ways of saying things, and just knowing that person a little bit more allows you as an actor to understand what they want. And I think I learned a lot of that in grad school, and they gave me my equity card that summer working at the Nebraska Rep, so I came out of college in the union. And then when I came to the Purple Rose, they started hiring me as a union actor. That was the first union job I had outside of Nebraska, was the Rose.
Oh, wow.
It was great. And they have a philosophy of acting at the Purple Rose that is similar to a lot of places that are just about telling the truth. I mean, that's what they'll tell you: look, react, breathe, tell the truth. It's pretty simple sounding.
Yeah.
But, in a small space like that, it makes it a little more conducive to doing that kind of work. When you work at the Hartford stage or something, you have a rehearsal room where we're talking like this, and then all of a sudden you get on the giant stage, and you feel totally fake because you have to hit the back row, and you have to pull it all back together again, knowing that you have to project out to the very limits of the place.
Yeah, I went to the Hillbury, and that space is monstrously big.
Right.
And my first couple of shows outside, when I graduated, I'd be in rehearsal going, "Why am I yelling? Why am I speaking so loud? You're right there." And I realized, oh yeah, I've been ingrained into this, like, project, because the acoustics in that space are just the worst and everything else. So
hitting all those plosives.
I gotta, and it's also Shakespeare, so everything's bigger, and I'm in this very very intimate show, and I'm like, "Wah!" And I'm like, I'm already big. Like, I don't have to do any work to make myself big. After you left the Rose, you decided to start a theater?
Well, I started that during a show at the Rose, actually.
Okay.
So we were doing The Underpants, and Tony Caselli was directing it.
Okay.
And Tony, right as we opened, the Purple Rose basically let him go because they were cutting back, and Jeff felt that he was the associate artistic director there, and under Guy Sandville, and Jeff thought it was sort of a redundant thing, so he let Tony go. And that's when I said, "Hey, you're good at this, maybe we could start a new theater," just during that. And Chris Purchase had left her job just a little bit earlier, and Tony said, "Sure, yeah, if we can have Chris." And then Emily Sutton Smith, who is now my wife, was at the Michigan Theater in Ann Arbor doing development. And so the four of us got together in Dexter and started to plan out, well, how are we going to do this? If we actually could do this, what'll we do? And I had moved to Williamston because it's close to my mom. She lives in Okemos. And it's a cute little town, and it's very similar to the Purple Rose. It's Chelsea. It's smaller than Chelsea, but it has that same kind of small town feel to it.
It has an actual downtown, which is helpful.
Yeah. And it had a restaurant called the Red Cedar Grill. It was very similar to the Common Grill, which Chelsea had. And so we started going around town into the park and asking people, what do you think about having a live theater in this place, professional live theater? And pretty good support. Some people saying that it'll never work.
So you went out into the park
during an art fest.
During an art
set up
fest,
a thing, you know.
And you set up a little stand.
Yeah.
And you were surveying the community.
And if we did have a theater, what would you want to name it? You know, that sort of a thing.
Really?
Yeah.
And what if everyone was like, a theater? Not in my town. I mean,
we wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it.
Right.
That's so interesting. That's a great place to start. So, do you still have an eye towards the community as you move forward with your theater?
We do very much. But most of our patrons come from outside of Williamston. So we have 11 to 12,000 people come through. It's only a 100-seat theater, but
it's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. Yeah,
100-seat theater.
We make them come through. And about 80% of our patrons come from outside of the Williamston area. So we get a lot of people from this area, from Ann Arbor, Brighton, and then a lot from Lansing, East Lansing, Okemos. And it sounds like we don't get much from Williamston, but we have a lot of support from Williamston just because it's a 3,000 person town.
So if you do 30 shows, you basically have everyone come
Everybody
through.
comes through, right.
And how many shows do you do for one particular run?
For a run, we do between 5 and 6 weeks, 5 shows a week. So we get in between 25 and 30 shows for each run. We do 6 shows a year. We've been doing that for 14 years now. I mean, we're in the middle of our 14th season, so I think it's our 82nd show we're on right now.
So what other steps along the path?
Okay. So,
okay, great.
So we had, there's a guy in town, Steve Zinda, who runs Cardinal Fabricating, and saw the potential of having a theater in town. And he said, and at the time I was doing bus stop down at the Purple Rose. So Steve helped pay for a bus of VIPs from Williamston to travel down to look at Chelsea and to look at the theater and say, we could do this in Williamston. And we did that. They saw the show, they liked it, the buzz began to happen. And then Steve took Tony and I out to breakfast and said, if you can find a place down here, I will buy it and I'll rent it to you for $1 a year, and that can be your home.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was huge. And then we found a place. It was a furniture store, and we had to, totally renovate it. Bart Bauer came in and designed the theater for us in a little thrust stage, and we got the building in January in 2006, and we had our first show the summer of 2006, and we've been doing. That's where it started.
Wow.
Yeah, ever since. So Steve was huge in helping us get going.
Wow.
And then restaurants started popping up downtown. It's been great. We have one across the street, the Bistro, Tavern 109, Riverside Inn. We've probably got 5 upscale restaurants just in the area.
So do you think that your theater is singularly responsible for those restaurants popping up?
I think we have a lot to do with it. Because another survey we took, nearly 90% of our patrons go out to eat before they see a show. So we've got 100 people a night going to these restaurants and then coming in. And I know it's helped a lot. For at least the Red Cedar said that. And yeah, I think they all have actually said that. And it's been great. The
theaters help the local economy.
Yes,
if you're watching, know that.
Yeah, it's been good for everybody.
Yeah, wow.
And part of it was looking at Chelsea and what Jeff Daniels did to the community there by having that theater and how it's built up since that theater has been there. And to an extent, so has Williamston, same way.